But yeah, so that's my Bible teaching for the day.
Yeah, I still remember when I was younger, the pastor of our church was dying of cancer, and
Oh man.
he would ask the parish to pray for him. And I very distinctively remember at like age 13, 12 or 13, something like that. I was like, dude, you're our fucking God. How the hell, if he's not going to save your ass, what the fuck, why am I even bothering? You know? I don't know, I'll be live, Mitch. Not playing the music anymore, we can't hear it.
It's funny because every time you guys say like, "Are we live now, Mitch?" Like, are we playing the music? Literally, the music is about to end. You just need to wait 2 more seconds.
And I told my entirely super depressing story about how I lost faith in God. That's
it's a great way to start a podcast, right? Yeah.
That's some of the deepest shit I've ever heard in my life.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Pixel Pints. We are the only global gaming podcast that talk about 2 great things. We may not talk about one of them today, but we usually do, which is great beer and video games. I'm your host, Mitch. Keith is gone. Out sick. He'll be back. Not COVID. Just not feeling good. So, you get to hang out with us and Boogie. So, we'll do that. I am joined from across the pond. We got Liam. How you doing?
Yeah, they're good. Having a nice week.
That's good. Good weeks are always good. And from the neighboring state, which actually my Bears are playing there in about...
Yeah.
2 hours, I was very tempted to buy a plane ticket and say, let me couch on your couch. I mean, let me crash on your couch and let me go watch this football game.
Our couch folds out into a bed, one of them. So
that's good to know.
There's always that.
I'm actually...
yeah, mental note, right? Yeah, actually, my sister-in-law and her boyfriend have tickets.
Oh,
so they're going to be at the game today.
Dang.
And he's originally from Chicago, so he's a huge lifelong Bears fan.
Well, you'll have to ask them to take pictures and send them back to me.
I'm sure they'll take pictures.
So I feel like I'm at the game with them.
But yeah, no, things are good. Just trying to wake up, drink some coffee.
You know what I'm actually fascinated by, because that is in Las Vegas and it's so easy for people who don't know if you're from anywhere around the world, because we are a global gaming podcast. When you go to Las Vegas in the United States, it's relatively one of the cheapest flights and the cheapest hotels you can stay in all of America, just in general, for the convenience and how much you spend, because they want you to spend the money in the casino. So, right. Because that is, and they have a football team there, I'm really curious. So you'll have to ask your brother for me to like give me a percentage of like how much away and home team are there, because so many people can just easily fly in and buy a ticket that I wonder if it's more like a 50-50 split at the stadium compared to like you usually would get like a 60-40 if anything.
I don't know, dude. Raider Nation is fucking intense.
But the Bears fans travel.
No, yeah, but seriously, like, I've never seen so many goddamn cars with the Raiders shield on the back window than I have this last year.
Well, that's like, what happens when the team wins.
Yeah. No, but like everybody from like Oakland and even like old school LA fans they just moved here and just bought up all the houses. So like, okay, we live here now. We're following the team.
We follow with the team. That's another form of religion that I am all for. But yes, we are a global gaming podcast. If you want to find us, we are streaming every single weekend here on Twitch at twitch.tv/pixelpints. We do archive those episodes, but we have every single episode on all the podcast services where you listen to podcasts. You can also go to YouTube and just look up Pixel Pints, and we're there as well. If you want to follow us and know when we're going to be streaming live on Twitch every single weekend, which is always abnormal, different times depending on how many guys we get, because we are global. We have so many time zones we have to coordinate. So, but if you want to follow us to know when we're going to go live, we are on Twitter at pixel_pints or on Instagram at pixelpintspod. All right. Well, usually I would say let's talk some beers, but nobody of us got beers because Burkoff and we are here at really, really early in the morning, so we're not going to be drinking beer. We're drinking coffee and water. And I know Liam, just because of his, what is it, gluten? Gluten-free?
No,
Keto.
Yeah, my
that's
better
what it is.
excuse though is that all of the hardcore drugs I'm taking doesn't mix well with alcohol.
So we're not going to talk unless anybody had a beer they had this week they wanted to talk about. I did not have one this week yet, so I can't speak for one.
My week has been so freaking busy. I haven't had a chance to really pick up any good craft beer. So
That's what
hopefully this
next
week it'll calm down a little bit.
We'll just have to double it up next week.
Yeah.
So that means 2 beers for each of us, gentlemen. 2 beers for each. So that means since we're not talking about beers, we can just talk about what we've been playing because, it kills some time while also talking about interesting things because we all kind of been playing interesting games in general. So, I guess I can go first because I have the game right here in my hands. I have been playing some wrong game. It's a Metroid Dread. I've not played a Metroid game before, so this is my very, very first Metroid game. And then I do have.
Not even the Primes. You never played the Primes either.
Never played the Primes.
Ah, wow.
So I do have Metroid, Super Metroid on my Switch, ready to go as soon as I'm done with this one. If I really enjoy it, so far I'm really liking Dread. I think I'm about 3 to 4 hours in. It's good. I don't play as much side-scrolling games as well, so this is kind of a fresh thing for me. I'm though curious if the reason why I like it so much is how in Dread they change it up a lot because of these new robots that you have to kind of run from in certain sections of the game, because it really changes up the pace of the game. Whereas if I was playing it the way that you play most of the game through, if I was just only playing it that way, I don't know if I would find it as compelling and interesting. And the story is really good for how much nits and pieces they feed you. It does really well with that.
So that's what Evan was saying in the Discord. I didn't get a chance to read all of his comments. But he was saying that the enemy sections really do change up the gameplay a lot.
Mm-hmm. They do.
At least like how you approach those sections.
Yeah.
So.
And they're not as annoying. So like if anybody's thinking like these guys are like, if you played the Resident Evil 2 remake and you're like, oh my God, it's Mr. X all over again. Not necessarily. They give you a lot of warning signs. So like the thing will scan in the environment and there's already a warning sign to be like, okay, there's one in this room. And then there's it scanning the area, and you can run it. It's pretty easy to run away from one and like outsmart it, unless you get yourself cornered in a bad way. Like then that's kind of your fault. But the checkpoints are at most forgivable. Sometimes they are a little farther back than what you want them to be, but yeah, I've gotten stuck Jesus, I cannot speak today. I got stuck a few times, and I did have to look up once how to get out of it, because I'm not used to a game like Metroid. If you've never played a Metroid game like myself, just if you don't know what to do, go shoot up an entire room and maybe a secret pathway will open up for you that you're supposed to know that's there. I know that's a contrivance that, not contrivance, an old way that games used to play. Cliche, thank you. That's an old cliche that games used to play. I have played one other game that was very, very similar. It was Final Fantasy Adventure. That was very similar, whereas like, oh, you have to like put a bomb in this, or you have to like hit this exact area and it'll open up a secret path that'll let you actually go through the level. So just know that's something you may run into. For the most part, it's pretty straightforward and very simple to get through in regards to like knowing where to go next. And I do see now, I fully have understanding of being like, when people say Metroidvania, I get what you mean.
Yeah,
So-
no, I was just about to say, it's like part of the genre, getting lost, isn't it?
Yeah.
Basically.
I'm
Happens to all of us.
really curious to see, Mitch, how long it takes you to get through the game, because I always check how long to beat, just because I don't have the time that I used to have when I was little. And the completionist reporting right now is only 10.5 hours
Yeah.
for the whole game, which is
So when I saw the walkthrough, like when I obviously when you go through a walkthrough, they kind of like list everything. So I didn't read it all, but I kind of like saw how many bullet points there were. I was probably a third way through the game, so it'll probably take me 12 to 15 hours. I'm guessing is my guess based off like where I'm at. Like I don't know, it could get extremely hard, and then I'm stuck for a while. But like usually I'm a speed demon. Like you guys know me. I'm like I can get through a game probably with 5 hours faster than a normal person, which surprisingly like somehow I was slower with Kenna than most people, because everyone was saying Kena was like, what was it? They said it was like 8 to 9 hours, and I'm like, I got that thing done in like 13. I was like, I don't know what the hell you all were talking about, because you know, evidence states that usually I'm faster, so it just didn't make any sense to me. But yeah, that's what I've been playing. Any questions besides that, fellas, on this game?
No, I think I'm glad that you're playing an old school style Metroid for your first game, though. Instead of Prime or what was that other one? Other M. That was like a mix.
Oh yeah, Other M. Yeah, that one was a mix.
Yeah, it was like 2.5D, 3D, whatever. So, yeah, I'm excited to know what you think when you're done with it, for sure.
I'm more interested in the art style than anything, because I remember when they first announced that game, I thought that don't look too good, and then when they showed it recently, it's like they updated the art style like quite nicely, and it looked very nice.
Okay. So here's the thing. I wonder if the shots you're seeing are from the Switch directly, because when I'm playing it on this monitor right here. It's a 1440p monitor,
right? Yeah.
Connected via HDMI. It doesn't look great.
Yeah, I imagine it.
It's really blocky. The quality is not very clean and clean. The colors are very muted. That's the one thing I do have an issue with, and where I'm like just have my frustration with the Switch in general, and Nintendo just and everyone goes, it's just visually. Yes, I care about visuals, but I also think like better hardware equals better opportunities to create better gameplay. And right now, like the Switch is trying to play a sport with everybody else, but with their like hide behind their back and also hopping on one foot.
But there's a lot to be said for a nice clean image and a good frame rate.
Right, and I think this game could look amazing. Not only amazing, it could play amazing too. Like this is one of those where it's like if it was on something like a PS4 or like an Xbox, you could have this thing on the silkiest smooth frame rate, because you don't have to do a lot more than that. Like you can just focus on the frame rate and the image quality while having still this type of gameplay, and I think it would be amazing. So excuse me, I'm allergic to, I guess, Switches being modernized.
There's always Yuzu, which is the Switch emulator, which I'm sure we'll see plenty. I'm sure we'll see plenty of videos. This is what Metroid Dread looks like when you replace the textures and run it at 4K.
I mean, I just like, that's the only thing that I was disappointed while playing this game is like, and half reason why and this is a different topic in general, but maybe it is a topic we need to bring up sometime, is like, because the Switch is kind of backwards in regards to like hardware quality, should reviews give it lower scores for certain elements like graphics and gameplay, because it is playing on something that isn't to the current standard, which is the most powerful thing you've ever seen, which is like a PS5 or an Xbox Series X.
When I was preteen, early teen, I would have agreed with you for like Game Boy games, right? Because there was even competition with like the Game Gear, which was arguably far superior to the Game Boy, right? Mm-hmm. But there were Game Boy games that got, like really high scores, really good reviews, and I used to think this is stupid. These games look horrible compared to what you can play on your TV. But I mean, looking back at it now, like no, it's not a good way to look at it, because games like Pokemon came along, which totally changed the way people interacted with those devices.
Yeah. I mean, but you could still give it a bad score graphically, and it could still be high on the gameplay score, So, different topic. Different topic for another day, I think.
You've got to work within the specifications and what the machine allows you to build. Like, putting a game down when it's only releasing on a weaker platform, I think that's it's a bad angle to go down. I mean, like, reviewers are already very choosy with...
Well, I mean, it's not necessarily doing it because it's on a weaker platform. You're doing it because it doesn't graphically compare to everything else.
Yeah, but I think that's it's a bad bridge to cross, because I mean, even right now we sort of have the problem where certain reviewers review games like way more poorly when they have glitches that can be fixed and things like that. But they're very pick and choosy with it.
Yeah,
you can have a review from the same outlet that is completely like ruined by its reviews because of the glitches it has, and you can have another game where it's pretty much ignored because they know it will be fixed.
That's
and choose,
That's another part of the topic too that we'll have to bring up for next time too, because the other thing is like assuming a glitch will be fixed. Like that's not a good assumption to make.
No, and I think
because you don't know if that glitch can actually be fixed. Like you think it'd be easy, but if you ever look at code, it is not as simple as what you think it is.
Well, Cyberpunk's living proof of that, right?
Yeah.
Anyway,
another time. Liam, what are you playing?
Oh, I've actually been playing a lot. I'm quite pleased with myself. I'd say I recently finished Horizon Zero Dawn for the second time. Finally played the DLC, played the PlayStation 5, with the patch. Wonderful. I really enjoyed playing that game again at 60 frames per second, and I thought the DLC was really good. Like, it's some of the best content in the game, I would say. Like, in terms of gameplay. Some of the new creatures are aggravating, but really fun. I had a good time. And I'm a lot more excited for the sequel now. That's why it really got me pumped up for it.
All right.
Nice.
Berghoff.
And if you want me to also say, I did play the Battlefield 2042 beta. All I'll say is they need to delay that game.
Well, I mean, you're a stir the tea. You might as well, pour it on. What's happening?
Oh, the game. The thing is, when you play it, you're like, I mean, visually it's fantastic, and you can tell that it's got everything the game needs underneath the surface. But the game has so many glitches, and even if the beta is like a couple of months old, I don't think it's ready. You've got all of these little weird decisions that they've got in there. There's bits where you can't see what button prompt you need to pick up something because the writing is so minuscule that you can't see it on the screen.
Oh, it reminds me of was it Dead? What was the one? Dead Rising or something like that. What was the one game from Xbox where you had the it was the mall and zombies and you had to
that's Dead Rising.
Yeah.
Okay, that also I had to complain about that when I was younger because I was like the writing was so tiny on the big screen I couldn't read what they were saying.
I feel like that's like 80% of all games right now, and I feel like I'm just getting old. At least I thought I was, because I'll look in the menus and I'll be like, "Is there a way to scale up the UI text on this?" I'm like, I'm just I'm just an old man here.
Well,
Yeah.
I think that's fair. It's like every game should have an option to increase the size of that.
Well,
you know,
I think
me,
that
a person with pretty healthy eyes cannot even see. You know, I'm like going really close into.
I remember that was an issue with some people on some TVs with God of War, and I remember there was a tweet Cory Barlog sent out, and he's like, "Yeah, we tested it on a lot of televisions," and so he was actually shocked to find that it was almost unreadable on a couple people's television screens. He's like, we can only test for so many screens to see how it works and if it's working correctly. But I would agree with you all to say just like an easy fix is just like have an option to bump up the text or lower the text size, because you can do it on your phone, and so you can have these apps be like humongous, like one app per screen if you wanted them to be. So yeah, I think that should definitely be an option.
Definitely. I mean, there are other things as well. Like every time you go into an elevator, you you just fall through the floor, and your friends go up in the sky, and you finally get up to the top, and the doors don't open in the elevator, and so you just clip out of the elevator and shit like that.
Oh, interesting.
Wow.
Yeah, it's nuts. Also, one of some of the glitches are really funny. Like, there's this one where people parachute to the ground, but the parachute is still sticking up in the air, so you can actually spot where they are because they've got a great big parachute they're walking around the back with.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
Does
that's bad.
Is my only one question for that game is, so far with the beta, is the destruction of the buildings and them like collapsing like really good to watch?
Revolution, baby.
Well, funny you should say that, Mitch, because actually that was another problem I had with the beta, which was the map. The map is a strange one. It's very large. I don't think the lobbies were filled up with the 128 player cap. It felt more like less than half of that. People were like in the lobbies at the time, and it's a big map. And
maybe they were just doing it just to like stress test the servers. Maybe,
but it certainly doesn't give you confidence in the product.
Because I do remember some betas will like slowly increase the size of amount of players inside, and they'll just put bots in there temporarily to just like stress test the servers to make sure it can handle what it's trying to do.
Well, it's certainly possible, but there's no bots, and they said it was going to be 128 players. So it's hard to say.
Did you maybe you couldn't read it because the tiny print, it probably just said like 3 months from now.
Possibly, but on the other hand, with the destruction is good from what I've seen, but like I said, there weren't many buildings around, and the main pillar of the map, I guess, is right in the center of it, where there's a great big rocket ship that takes off. But you can't blow that up yourself. It's like a scripted event in the middle of the map that happens. Sometimes it happens differently. Sometimes it explodes. Sometimes it takes off. I didn't get to see a tornado. I played a few matches and couldn't get one, which I was really sad about. But I did see some clips of it online, and it is fantastic. Like, just brilliant. It's pulling up trees, and when the rockets like exploding, you can see the smoke being pulled off of the fire in the direction of where the tornado is coming from. I'm just like, that's an insanely amazing effect that they have there. You know, so this game could be absolutely brilliant, but they need to delay it because it's not going to be if they don't.
You know, it'd be absolutely fascinating if they did to a multiplayer game. Now that you just said this rocket and how much destruction this game does, would be what you do in one map affects another map on an entirely different game. So like, say like you shoot the rocket and you aim for it at a certain map, and say like all the worlds are connected. So like you send the rocket to the building world where all the buildings are. So then it explodes one of the buildings, and it's like you don't get credit for the kill, but you get the credit for like messing up their game.
I suppose, yeah. Although,
and then you could do like
give them that much work to do.
And then you could give them like a satellite launch strike on one of them, where like a laser just shoots down a beam on one of the maps. Oh, that'd be really cool to like mess them up. But interesting. Okay, we'll have to wait and see if it's going to be another Cyberpunk, or will it fix it. God. And speaking of Cyberpunk, we have an aficionado on the podcast now. That's you, Burko.
Yeah, so that's what I've been playing. I went in to GameStop to pick up Dread Friday after work, and I don't always just go in and buy the game. Like I have to peruse. Yeah, but I have to peruse and I have to see, and more times than not, I'm gonna go with the good deal over the shiny new thing. So I had a $5 off coupon, ended up getting Cyberpunk for $20. And while I was at the store, I looked up the most recent patch, and it said that it was running solid 30 frames on last gen. So I was like, "Fuck it, I'm gonna play this on my 1S."
Solid 30. Wow. Whew. Yeah, that's life changing, man. That's life changing gameplay, bro.
But I mean, I had said that I was gonna give it a year anyway when it came out and see where it's at. So
well, hasn't been a year yet, though. You went against your own lie.
I mean, it's been practically a year and
9 months.
Well,
three quarters. 3 quarters.
If he was going off of the September release date,
yeah, I guess so. No, he went off the April release date.
Yeah. But anyway, no, I'm actually having a lot of fun with it. I've had 2, I think, major glitches in the entire game, and other than like some dips in the frame rate, it's actually performs pretty well. I'm surprised. So they've definitely put a lot of work into it, and I don't know. I'm liking the story. I like the different options for the combat. I love that a majority of the game you're sitting talking to people and using like your background plays a lot into like the dialogue choices and stuff.
What's your background choice?
Corpo, of course.
Oh, I did Corpo. Yeah, Corpo's great. Did you? Yeah. So, question: have you tried the sword?
Yes, I do have a katana.
Do you like the katana combat?
Yeah, it's not bad. I like it. So I'm doing handguns and blades. That's like my 2 things.
Burkoff, man, we're cut from the same cloth, bro. That's what I did. I was gonna say because I did mention in a podcast a few times ago that I said I did like the sword combat comparable to like other RPGs like Elder Scrolls. I was like, I like the sword combat in this game much better than I ever did in an Elder Scrolls game.
Yeah, so they definitely took a lot of time into figuring out like how the melee combat works, because even in the tutorial area, so like the first mission that you have, you're talking to Jackie and he's like, hey, you want to jack into this VR and just brush up on your skills, and it throws you into like the combat tutorial, and even in that, like going through just the punching, being able to do a combo and then like to block and dodge and stuff. Like I was actually really surprised at how well that actually works, and it's pretty intricate for an RPG.
Yeah, Elder Scrolls better be looking.
Yeah, and there's one point in the story, at least I think, I don't know, for me anyway, the path that I took, I was stuck in this area where I didn't have any weapons, and tripped an alarm, and I was like, oh, that's right, I can melee these guys. And so like I snuck around, took one guy out, and then like attacked another, and then got their weapons, and then I ran around and just murdered everybody. But it was kind of cool to have that option. Like normally I would have been like, oh, fuck it, I'm just gonna reload my save because I don't have my weapons, and figure out a different way to do it. But being able to be like, oh, I can just approach it from this way on the fly was really really cool. So yeah, I'm enjoying it actually. I'm way more than I thought I was going to, for sure.
I mean, when you have really really low expectations, it kind of helps a bit because the game's good, it's just not great in my opinion.
I like it because Mitch, I remember when the game released. We were both pretty much in agreement that it was going to be a little bit of a mess at launch. But
I didn't say a little. I said it was a shit show.
Well, I was like, I'm going to wait 6 months before I play it, because hopefully by then they would have fixed most of the problems.
I never trust them to fix it.
Turns out Burko was right, because a year was a better bet.
Yeah,
wait to play it after a year. Yeah.
We'll see as he gets further into the game, because the further you get in, the more complex the game gets, which therefore could cause more glitches. So we'll have to see, because there's just so many things you do in the game affect dialogue choices, which then affect other things. So like there's just more opportunities for crashes because the code has to, move around as you play with it more. So we'll have to see. Because I ran into more crashes as I got further than in the beginning. The beginning I didn't run into very many. It's when I got into the later half of the game is when I was like, oh, it was bad.
So,
I thought that as well.
You played on PC at launch. Have you played it since? Have you downloaded the latest patch?
No, because I don't feel like the need to play it again.
Okay. Well, I mean, I don't know. It was when I installed it. It was I think it's like a 42 gig patch.
Yeah. See, that's the other thing. I don't want to. Well, I mean, just to like try it out.
You basically re-download the fucking game. Like
I know.
There's
You're downloading the game 2 times over again.
Basically, yeah.
I remember because I've been watching those reports they've been doing. Like every time they release a patch. Apparently, they remade the entire navigation system around the map, things like that. They just completely built it again from the ground up because it was something that the developers were like screaming to the upper management. It's like, we can't release the game like this, it's broken. They were just like, no, it's fine.
Basically, they released a game that was not even done, like what they wanted it to be. It's just so. It's just so. I don't get it. I mean, I get it, but I just don't. Like, I mean, I guess never mind. I do get it. It is CD Projekt Red, and they release buggy games. Just what they do.
I'm so interested in where the game's going to be at 2 years from now.
I'm just curious about their next game and how if it's because of this, people don't pre-order it as much or people don't buy it right away. And I wonder if people don't trust reviewers after this, because reviewers still gave this game great scores, even though they were giving disclaimers.
Some of them did.
Does GOG have early access or pre-release status for their games?
No, it was on. Nope, not that I know of.
I wonder if they do that then for their next game, and then just flat out say that this is early access
for the next Witcher game.
Yeah, I mean,
no, they wouldn't do that.
Well, look at Hades.
But I think the difference with Hades is Hades was an unknown property. Witcher is a known property. When people bought the last Witcher game, they actually got a full-fledged game. Whereas if you're buying, like, to buy the next Witcher game, it would be I don't know if the average consumer that buys the game most people would be confused, if anything.
Yeah, I mean, only if there was a huge marketing push behind it. So the way that Hades did it was they quietly launched into early access. It built up buzz in the community, and then there was a huge hard push for the final 1.0 release.
I get what you're saying, Matt. It's just like Baldur's Gate 3 as well.
Yeah, Baldur's Gate 3 is doing this. Microsoft has implemented their Insiders Hub for you to get early access to shit.
But again, these are for smaller games, though. Like smaller games.
Well, no, I mean like Halo Waypoint. Like, so in order to get into those early betas, you had to sign up for it. They sent you, a notice or whatever, but it was open to everybody. I think this is something that developers and publishers are probably going to start to do moving forward. And the success of No Man's Sky shows that it works. If you just continue to improve on the game over time and build up the community,
it can work. I mean, it's kind of like what Sea of Thieves did, and also that game from Obsidian, Grounded.
Yeah, which is still in game preview right now, or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. But it's very popular even in game preview.
I see what you're saying, and I'm not saying it doesn't work. I'm just saying that Witcher 3 is that would make it seem Witcher 3 is going backwards.
I don't think so.
Because when people are gonna buy The Witcher 3,
yeah,
they're going to want what they got from the last game. I think they would get more uproar if someone bought The Witcher 3 and they're like, oh, it's an early access. And it's like, I just spent $70 on this game and it's an early access? Like, because it's, whereas Sea of Thieves Sea of Thieves is
you're talking about if there's a hard marketing push and it's the average consumer. It's not going to be the average consumer that buys this game in the first year.
The Witcher 3? After the Netflix show?
Witcher 4.
The Witcher 4. Absolutely, it's going to.
Because the average person is not even going to know that it's
no,
on
they
all
will.
those platforms.
They will know. Of course they will. They got the show. They're going to do the marketing push for this game. Like, this is CD Projekt Red is, of course,
after it's been in early access for a year.
Yeah,
they're not going to do it that way.
That's what I'm saying.
I don't see them doing it
they
that
could.
way. They could, but I don't see them doing
it.
I don't see them doing it that way.
But like Mitch, like the success that's being had, you know, from other games doing this, it could happen, especially with CD Red, because they have a problem with releasing games.
But again, like, I get what you're saying. Like, I'm only saying it wouldn't work for them is because of a couple factors. One, sorry, I got ahead of myself. One, most of those games are unknown properties. It allows them to build an audience that does not have one to start with. The Witcher is a mass market type thing. So, like, people know the name, especially with the Netflix show. Holy cow, this thing is beyond famous. Like, if you get an inkling that The Witcher is out and a person's a gamer, they will go hop on this early access thing and then be disappointed it's early access. So then that's one. Then two,
people aren't stupid though. You know, they know, and you know, they can see when it's an early access game.
Not the average consumer.
Oh God, yes, Mitch.
No, they don't.
Of course they do.
No, they don't. You don't say that. No, don't. But
there's a great big fat banner at the bottom of the game saying "Game Preview." They're not an idiot, you know.
I mean, I've seen
when they go into the game, like, you know, the thing is that if they're frustrated by that, well, they deserve to be because they're idiots, and like. Most people, even people outside the gaming zeitgeist, are pretty aware of Cyberpunk 2077 because that game was a catastrophe at launch in multiple ways, not just because of the lawsuits and everything that transpired because of it. But I think I would always prefer they just release the game when it's done, you know. But that may be an option that CD Projekt Red would consider, and I think it could work for them. I don't think it's outrageous. I don't like it, but I think it could happen.
I think too, it's so reliant on story that basically you're just handcuffing yourself and being
so is Baldur's Gate.
Yeah, so Baldur's Gate 3 is doing is they're locking it at a certain point. So you can only go through so much of the story, and then like once they've polished all of the gameplay and all the bugs and everything, then they'll release the final chapter, final act, or whatever. And then the game will release full regular, you know, release, and you'll be able to go through the entire game.
I mean, I could see
copying that.
I get what you're all saying, like, and that it's definitely an option. Like, not saying it's not in the realm of possibility. I just highly doubt that that's what the route they're going to do because they need.
I do too.
They need the greatest good faith back, and what they can do is by showing a finished game. Not a game. I think putting the game in preview would actually put distaste in people's mouths because then they're going to like, how long do I have to wait for this? Because Cyberpunk took more than a year to fix.
So, I mean, I don't know.
More distaste and trepidation than just releasing it in general because they after Cyberpunk.
Yeah, so...
But that's when you say that...
People don't talk about it, but The Witcher 3 was a fucking mess when that came out.
Right, but I'm just saying...
Reviewers did not give a shit.
But then this is all in the context of saying that, like, they've learned their lesson and they're actually going to release the game when it's actually not buggy and it's actually fixed. That is all in the... Like, what I'm stating is all in the realm of the context of the game is going to be finished, quote unquote, truly finished when they release it into the mass wide public, and instead of doing a game preview.
I mean, a game today is never really finished until the fucking GOTY Definitive Edition is released, or the Legendary Edition, or you know, whatever. Like that final package with all of the crap that you could have spent $200 on, but now costs you $40. That's when a game's finished.
Well,
Depends on the game. Some of it's more just
Matthew,
bug fixing, but most of it's done.
I think that's something people appreciate about Sony games is, you
they're
just
done.
get something and it's
Sony and
Nintendo
Nintendo.
Yeah,
exactly.
And
Sony and Nintendo.
Yeah.
Most of the times
sure.
most times it's just bugs. They don't have to fix the UI system because the UI is jacked, or they don't have to fix they don't have to fix this level because it won't ever complete. Like, that's just nothing they run into because they actually let the game come out when it's done. Like,
yeah.
And that's why people are more patient to let, I guess Twitter recently has proven me wrong on that comment, but for the most part, more people are patient with like Nintendo games and Sony games when they even push a game back, because they're like, yeah, because I know when the product is done, it's actually done. It's not like, oh, it's kind of done, or a Cyberpunk where it's definitely not done. We just had to put a date on it. So,
right.
Anyway, too much time on this topic. We should probably move on.
I was going to say,
I think so.
Should we go to...
Let's go to our... I mean, it was an interesting topic we were talking about. But anyway, we have a topic, and I'm going to let Liam introduce it because it was his topic.
Okay. Well, basically, my topic is what company is the worst publisher in the games industry right now? And has it changed over the years? And what quantifies a company being the worst? What is it? Is it to do with whether it's friendly to consumers? Whether it's not friendly to consumers, whether it is unethical, or whether it may be other outstanding circumstances.
Ooh! Can I give the Keith answer? Yeah, give the Keith answer.
Keith,
do it. You better be listening, because I know you watch. I know you watch this stuff. So this is for you, staring right at you, Keith.
Be a real bitch.
You ready?
EA Games.
Nope. You ready? It's eye contact. Here we go. Activision. Because they're a bunch of greedy bastards.
That was incredibly creepy.
Yeah. I stared right into the eyes of I'm so sorry to our viewers that are actually like watching it. I'm sorry.
I'm a little uncomfortable right now.
I'm sorry I made you feel really uncomfortable because I stared right at you. Like, even though we're supposed to give eye contact, that's pretty proper. To be honest, I find eye contact uncomfortable, so I know your feeling. I'd probably be looking away as well. Actually, people mention to me often, they're like, why do you not really look at me? It's like, I find it really uncomfortable if I'm looking right at your eye. So, like, I just like to kind of look at you, and then I'll look up for a minute, and then I'll look at you, and kind of look. Anyway. But mine would be EA. I think EA is the worst publisher. And my criteria for that is, this is a company that has bought multiple studios and has shut down multiple studios. When you buy and you acquire studios, you need a plan to be able to have them create games for you. There's a reason why you bought them. It's not because you wanted to close them. Now maybe that you bought them to help them with, like, maybe you wanted the talent and then you send the talent elsewhere. But for the most part, they let them attempt a game, and then if the game doesn't do well, they just break them up. So clearly they don't have the leadership or don't understand exactly what the studio's ambitions were in the first place, or didn't do a good enough job in supporting their studios to be able to complete what they wanted to. And you could say an example would be, they acquired BioWare, and they did make a couple good games for them in the process when they were working with them, but then there's a balancing act with managing your studio and letting your studio rock and roll. And I think this was an example, like, they let them rock and roll, and then they got a little bit too touchy, and then they backed up a little bit too much. And so they just need to you need to find that balance when you're a publisher like that, to be able to manage all those properties. So that's EA's on my list.
I'm sorry, Mitch. I should probably clarify something. I wasn't thinking, like, who's the worst publisher historically. It's more who's the worst right now,
Oh, it's still EA.
Their management. Okay, I mean, that's fair. But there's more of a question of whose operations are the worst currently, between everything that's going on right now.
Oh, okay, let me rethink that
because,
one.
companies change all the time and get different CEOs, different management. Because they've lost so much stock and all of this bullshit.
Actually, I will still say EA because they lost Star Wars.
I think
and that's a hard thing to do. It's like you couldn't even convince them that you have a good enough future for Star Wars to keep it.
I think EA's in the middle of a pivot right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
they can turn it around. Like they're right mid-turn, so it's like if they finish the turn, they're good. If they go backwards, they're like, oh
yeah. I think if anything though, if they don't 180 it, they're gonna 360 it, and everybody's gonna.
I like that. Yeah. That's good. But why would you think they're pivoting? Like, what's your? Come on, explain more, Burkoff. This is a podcast. We want to hear you speak.
I think a lot of it has to do with Respawn actually, and Vince Zampella being able to tell the brass that no, fuck you, I'm not going to use your goddamn what the hell is their engine that they tried to make everybody use?
Frostbite.
No, I'm not using your Frostbite. I'm using Unreal. We're going to make a goddamn game that works, that isn't super complicated to develop. And the most successful games to come out of EA in the last 5 years have been from Respawn. Apex, Fallen Order.
And I just said Titanfall 2 would have probably been
Titanfall 2.
Popular if EA hadn't sent it to die.
Yeah. Well, I still think that it's probably one of the best speculative fiction games ever to come out, even though I know Evan doesn't agree with me. But yeah, I think that what Respawn is doing is showing that to the board at EA that, oh yeah, maybe we should probably not try to implement these massive top-down things for such a large, a large number of developers, right? Let the developers sort of figure out their own grooves, and then try to manage that way.
I agree with you, Matt, but I also disagree. I don't think they're pivoting so much because of Vince Zampella, even though I think he is definitely helping. I think it's because of their absolute failures. It's all of their failures that are making them pivot.
Yeah, I don't think that they would be letting Respawn do what it's doing if they hadn't failed so hard. So.
Well, the thing is that I think they've always really been letting Respawn do what they want. It was sort of like the original deal when they headed up the studio, Respawn. I mean, they said from the outset, because it was an independent studio at the time, and they were like, we're not going to build Titanfall on any of your internal engines. We're going to do it on Source. And then, the Star Wars game, they were like, yeah, we'll build this on Unreal. And now they're purchased by them, but the whole reason for the purchase, I remember EA giving it when they did buy them, is like, we're buying the management and the internal studio culture more than the IP, and trying to integrate into the rest of EA as they usually do. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So I think Respawn is sort of like it's not that they made EA that way. It's just they part of the deal was they were that way, and EA's looking at the successes that Respawn are having and thinking maybe we should be a little bit less hands-on with our studios, and maybe we should just let them build a culture and take things in different directions, I do think that everything that EA is doing now is because of their failures. Battlefront 2, Battlefield 5. God, there's just so many.
I think that
and it's all of those messes that have pushed them into this, to this point.
Yeah, I think EA was and is now turning away from being a reactionary publisher. They're always reacting to the new trend. They're like, oh my god, the service game's doing really well. Now we need a service game. Oh my god, like that's what they think about. They're trying to think of and I see what they're trying to do by like saying like the trend, like because if it is a trend, it means people are okay with it, right? And so they're like, oh, we can be on the trend too. But the tricky part is sometimes trends don't translate they translate to money for another publisher, but it's not because of the transactions that they're doing is what's making it the trend. It's the game itself is what's making it the trend. And so I think they're finally understanding that it's like, it's the game that matters. Now, if it's a great game and there is an opportunity to build in something where it goes with a trend, Apex Legends to be an example of it, of being like, we have something that there's a Fortnite formula that really works, which is the battle royale mentality. Well, we have a really good shooter studio. Why don't they make their own interpretation of it, and then we'll make our own unique way to monetize it because we're going to do it for free. And because the game is good, people don't care about the monetization as much compared to like an example of Battlefield 2, where Battlefield 2 was basically, for most people, it was the first Battlefield game. And I'm sorry, when I'm speaking Battlefield, I'm saying Star Wars Battlefield. Oh, sorry, Battlefront. Sorry, Battlefront.
Oh, you're talking about Battlefront 2.
Sorry, I'm talking about Battlefront 2. That Battlefront 2 is basically Battlefront 1 with more characters. That's all it is. There's not really much of a difference with that game. And I think people were trying to and hoping that it was going to be more of an actual Battlefront game, because what some of the other stuff that makes Battlefront really special was how sometimes condensed the game was. I think it's about EA is maybe trying to make an identity for themselves to being like, we want the most players to play online on our platform at the same time. And it's like, sometimes there are games that are for that, which is great, but sometimes you need to condense it down. Like Battlefront, what made Battlefront so special is sometimes those intimate, close-quartered, special moments. Are
you talking about the original Battlefront games from Pandemic?
Yeah, the original ones.
Yeah. Okay, not the first EA DICE.
No. Because what the thing was with the original DICE game is almost like they were trying to take Battlefield and put it into Battlefront, and that's not what Battlefront is.
It was Battlefield with a Star Wars skin,
which is not what people wanted.
It looked beautiful when it came out.
It looked great. Like, don't get me wrong. I just think they lost what really made Battlefront special. So, but
they still have.
What's yours, Liam?
Oh, mine. I was going between two, and I ultimately came down.
Take two? Just kidding.
No, not quite. I thought.
Too bad for Rafa. I would have said it for Rafa.
I'm being a little bit unfair. Hopefully we'll get to talk about it, though, because I do think they're heading down the path to becoming one of the worst publishers.
The dark side. The dark side of the Force.
Yeah. Ubisoft are pissing me off lately, and I can't stand them. But my actual pick was Activision. Like, you just can't get around it, really.
Wait, Activision Blizzard or Activision?
Activision Blizzard. I mean, Activision is a subsidiary of Activision Blizzard, so it's not really a publisher, per se. Activision Blizzard. I think I probably would have chosen someone else over them if it wasn't for what happened earlier this year with Blizzard. I mean, Activision are the worst company, one of the worst companies in the games industry, without a doubt. You know, Bobby Kotick, like, much to Keith's chagrin, is still there. Yeah, or much to Keith's credit, that he raves about him so often. But Bobby Kotick's a huge arsehole. Like, he just is. There's no way around it. I mean, I wouldn't ask him to leave Activision because he's pretty much ingrained there. But he's a terrible judge of what to do with a video game studio. And he always has been. And he focuses on profits over everything else. Much to the detriment of the company itself, because you can always count on Bobby to get you profits, but people don't like their company very much. In fact, people hate them. They never do anything to stop any of their studios that are going the wrong way. Instead, they'll just destroy them, can them, make them pivot to something else. And I think it's clearly obvious that while the studio is making the money, like Blizzard, they don't give a shit about what's going on inside the studio's culture, you know.
And
no matter how toxic it is.
So for the record, just because I know someone that works at Blizzard, so I just want to make it clear, and I'm not saying that what has happened is not happening. The person I spoke to that works for Blizzard specifically has said he has not witnessed any type of this kind of culture within his specific department, but not saying it has not happened.
Do you know which department he works in?
Cinematics.
Oh, cinematics. Yeah.
So he makes he makes cinematics for the trailers, the games themselves, for multiple projects. So he works with multiple team members within all the studios. So he said he has never heard an inkling, nor has he gotten the vibe that there is that type of thing. So he was just as shocked to see this written report, but not to say it's not been happening, but just saying like, some people, he's very proud still of like what he creates and what Blizzard creates. He's just very disappointed that that type of mentality has happened. Fortunately, not in his department, but somewhere else. So it's just some people are just doesn't even know this happens in their own workplace.
Well, much to your point, Mitch, a lot of people think that Activision as a whole is a cesspool of toxic people, when in fact it's mostly just Blizzard.
No, it's just Blizzard.
I know for a fact that a lot of people think Infinity Ward and Treyarch and a lot of the other studios at Activision are wonderful places to work.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But the thing, it was mainly the Overwatch team, the World of Warcraft team, and the Hearthstone teams that were the main progenitors of the toxicity within that studio.
Yep.
The StarCraft team doesn't exist anymore, but the Diablo, Cinematics, and I know a lot of the other more insular groups within the company are pretty much blameless, I'd say. And also Vicarious Visions, because they're now part of Blizzard. But the thing with Bobby Kotick, still, who pretty much is the problem with most of the things going on at Activision, is like the guy, he just does not care about pushing employees to work to the max, like he'll throw more people at something to fix a problem. It doesn't matter. I just think he's got one of the most like popular brands in the world, Call of Duty, and I guess you could talk about Blizzard as well to a certain degree, and you're thinking this should be even more successful than it already is, and he just does nothing with it. Like he just manages it all so poorly. It's like he's always in like fix mode. It's like he's always in disaster avoidance mode, where he's trying to get like his studios to avoid a disaster without ever considering maybe if you just did a few things, everything would be a lot better. That's it to me. And then the greed is the other facet of that.
Yeah, I was trying to think of what games have come out recently from Activision that I even care about. I don't know that there's any that they've released. Like, I don't know, maybe Crash Bandicoot 4?
Well, that's the thing, is are we going to get any more Crash Bandicoot or Spyro? Because those games have all sold pretty well.
Yeah.
But EA's moved all of those people onto Call of Duty. Because
didn't sell well enough.
Activision.
Yeah, well, it didn't sell well enough, and they're going to throw those franchises to the wolves instead of possibly not releasing a Call of Duty game for a year. You have to have one come out every year. No question.
I get
it still doesn't make any sense to me.
I get that, but like I would put a little asterisk on if we're talking just Activision by itself and what their plan is. I don't mind as much the Call of Duty every single year, because the difference is they're not being made by the same studio every year. There's a rotation of studios that do experiment with the franchise. So, and also, if you think about it as a company, you need the finances behind you to be able to back future projects and risk projects. Now, do I, like an example, like the new Crash game probably is a risk project for them, where it's like they don't know how much instantly they're going to get, because you don't know from the first time, like when they released the remasters, it was all nostalgia, right? That's why people bought those games. Like people enjoyed those games, but it was a big thing of nostalgia. When you release a new one, then you put it to the real test of saying, do people buy this game because they like Crash, or did they only buy the remasters because of the nostalgia factor? And I think it showed that for majority of it, it was mostly nostalgia, even though it sold pretty well, like we stated. But I don't think it sold the way they were hoping it was going to, because it's, riding the nostalgia factor on top of it. So Call of Duty, to bring in those profits, allows them the opportunity to take those risks. And I think they just don't. So I'm okay with the Call of Duty every year to get the money to do these risks. They just need to take more of them with this money that they get.
That would be the case, Mitch, if Call of Duty wasn't so poorly run as a business, to the point where they have to take all of their studios working on other projects off and put them... I don't know if you know this, but little known fact is Activision have probably cancelled more games over the past 2 years than at any other point in their history.
Oh, yeah. No, I know that for sure.
Yeah. But the thing is, it's not because those games can't be successful, or they wouldn't want those studios working on other projects. It's because their Call of Duty games are so poorly managed that they need all of those employees to come over to Call of Duty to get that game out on time. Because God forbid it doesn't release a Call of Duty.
Well, for the one off year, yes. For the one off year they had.
Yeah. No, well, they had problems with last year as well. It's just a thing that's been getting more and more. Well, actually, parenthesis, the game that came out last year, the problem wasn't with that game, it was with Warzone. They were having issues with Warzone, so they basically took a whole bunch of employees and put them over to work on Warzone to get that sorted out. That's
the new X factor, is they're putting them into Warzone because they need to release content consistently like Fortnite, and they're not like Fortnite where the making content in Fortnite's a little easier because, one, it doesn't look as good. It's like the gameplay is a little more what's the word I'm looking for? I don't want to say basic. It's, if you're looking at Call of Duty gameplay and if you're looking at Fortnite gameplay, in regards to like complexity, it's not as complex. So like they do need more people on that project. That's the thing. That's the X factor. It's Warzone.
Do you know what the issue with Warzone was? It's because the company wasn't funding the project enough.
Right.
Like, even after it came out in March and was a smashing success, it took them 6 full months to up their profit. It's just...
Well, I mean, yeah, you got to put in money to make money. Like, it's...
Exactly. And it's just like we wouldn't be in this mess right now if it hadn't been for that poor management.
I mean, yes. No, I'm not disagreeing that's poor management. And it may be... What?
I was saying it is poor management.
No, I said I'm not disagreeing with you.
So sorry.
I said it is poor management. I'm just saying that eventually, like if you're thinking about 2-3 years down the road, they may now then have the funds and have everything squared away to where they can move people back to making projects again.
Well,
that's all.
In a perfect world, that would happen if all of the employees that did want to work on those projects hadn't already left the company to form their own studios or moved to other studios. So they've already lost all of that talent.
Well, they just buy them up.
They won't. Why would people go back to a company that's already fucked them over?
No, not them. Like, buy a different studio. Like, it's all about nabbing studios now. It's all about that money,
yeah,
grabbing.
But that isn't practical, though,
What are you talking about? It is so practical. They have so much money. If they offered a studio so much money to say we will not. It's like they put it in the contract, similar to Respawn. Like they have their own company that's just like that. That's Respawn. They say, hey, we're gonna treat you like Respawn. You can do what you want, and as long as you're releasing a game, we don't care. So just we'll give you $10 million for your studio.
Franchises that those studios were already working on. The talent's moved on. You can't just buy a studio and tell them work on Crash Bandicoot, work on Spyro.
No, they just work on new ones. I'm not talking about working on the old properties again.
But Mitch, they could do that even if those studios were working. If they wanted to buy a studio and make something new, then sure they could do it. But they've lost all of the talent that would make the stuff that people already like.
I mean, what else do they have besides Crash Bandicoot and Spyro that people love about Activision?
I just don't want to make excuses for all of the fuck-ups that they've made. Like, it's just intolerable.
But this is interesting. Like, what other franchises do they have that, besides in Activision, besides Crash Bandicoot and Spyro, that people care about? What do they have?
I mean, they have their Prototype. I'm sure people would like a new Prototype game. They had True Crime back in the day, and they fucked that, and the whole studio basically went over to over to Square Enix and made Sleeping Dogs, which is one of my favourite games of the past 10 years. You know, and it's just like they're just so stupid. You know, all of these poor decisions. They have these wonderful things and they just squander it.
They had.
Remember when they were one of the top racing game studios in the world, when they had Bizarre Creations, and they let that go the way of the dogs as well.
Yeah, do they still have Tenchu?
Yeah, they still have Tenchu.
That'd be cool, you know. Cool
if you remember, From Software did Sekiro with them.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if they have the rights to Sekiro, but luckily for From Software, they're not owned by Activision. They'd be working on Call of Duty too.
Right. Yeah.
All right, Burkoff, what's yours?
Square Enix is mine.
Oh, interesting.
Oh, you got to justify yourself, kid, because I don't know.
Oh, dude, they are so fucking tone deaf on the industry and what people actually want. The fact that they're like these pixel remasters of the Final Fantasy games, like every one of those is over $10. No, get the fuck out of here. Like they're selling, I think Final Fantasy IV is $18. It looks like it looks like a mobile game. Get the hell out of here, Square. They're releasing a mobile only, or at least a mobile to start battle royale based on Final Fantasy VII. Get the hell out of here, Square. What the hell? What are you doing? Why is this even a thing?
Because Final Fantasy VII sold like shitcakes and people love Final Fantasy VII. Like, it seems reasonable. Yeah. Seems within reason.
And Japan.
And Japan. It's on mobile.
Mobile games.
Yeah, it's on mobile. Like, Bergov, I know you just hate on. I know you just hate on Final Fantasy VII Remake. Now, just hear me out for this one to counteract your point. Yes, Liam makes a great point with Japan and it's mobile. The other thing is, do you know how many people talk to me about Call of Duty Mobile? That if people like Final Fantasy VII, that's an extra piece of the market. Like it's why would you not try to compete with that? Come on.
They're making their first battle royale game. What, 7 years after the trend? Like, why are they doing this?
To be fair, I do think that game's meant primarily for the Japanese audience.
Maybe.
And I wouldn't be too worried about it because the team of developers working on it's pretty minuscule.
It looks like it's not. Yeah. Like I think you're saying like, oh my god, they're using all these resources for this. And it's like that. No, they're not using very many at all. That's not them. Like to do the pixeled versions. Yes, they're charging them at like an enormous cost. But to their cost analysis, you didn't buy. You've already bought every Final Fantasy game, so it doesn't even matter to you. But everyone else, they'll probably spend $18 on a Final Fantasy game if they really wanted to play it. And it probably
I went to it September.
If they really want to, but the other thing on top of it is like these are small projects. These are like their smallest of small projects. Like, come on.
Well, right, so
you should also mention the fact they won't release them on consoles, the primary place where people would want to fucking play them.
Yeah, there's that.
Well, you can buy them on console already if you want to.
No, you can't.
No,
none of those ones. We have 6 and over. We don't have 1 to 5.
No, 6 isn't it. 6 isn't on console.
6 isn't. 6 isn't on console. 7 and over.
Yeah.
Well, everyone has a phone, so there you go. They'll sell.
We only got 8 recently. Took so long.
No, but I just think all the decisions that they're making are just so tone deaf.
Keep going. Keep going.
Compared to what they built all of these franchises out of. They're also ignoring a lot of the stuff that they did that would be, or could be good sellers and big franchises from the 90s.
Example.
And if you look at
Parasite Eve?
Yeah, Parasite Eve. I don't know. There's a bunch of different ones. I just can't think of them right now.
Because they don't exist. I'm just kidding.
Chrono Trigger.
Well, I mean, they've released. Yeah, I mean, there's talk that they might do another Chrono game. I don't know if they will or not.
Good enough.
But I don't know. I think it's. I don't know. It's sad that like the output of their games too. Like when they were competing against Enix, before they bought them. They were putting out like a game a year, and it was, and they were all quality games. Now it takes them 15 years to make one game, and it's Final Fantasy 15, and it's just not. I don't know.
It's only been 4 years since Final Fantasy 14 to 15.
No, BB's talking about the project Final Fantasy 15.
Oh.
It did take them
Project
like
Final Fantasy,
years.
yeah.
Yeah, not that it's 15 years between that and the next one, but I get that.
I get what you're saying, but
much frustration.
I get what you're saying, but I think of all
Final
the
Final Fantasy 16 is going to be this like grim, dark, Game of Thrones style of fantasy world. Like that's not Final Fantasy, really.
I mean, I think it's a lot closer to.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
I'm very excited for it personally because I feel like it's going back to franchise roots. In a lot of ways.
And I think it looks great. I think you just don't. I think you just want turn-based combat, and that's the only reason why you don't. You hate on anything that isn't turn-based combat. But anyway,
that's the main reason.
But anyway,
I do empathize.
I will state to you, Burkoff, I actually disagree harshly, and I think if anything, Square Enix is one that is in the middle of already making the pivot and is moving forward from the pivot because they fixed a lot of things.
I want to bring up something as well. I'm just bemused because I thought you were going to be like, yeah, fucking Avengers, fucking Tomb Raider. You didn't even mention any of their Western games. That's my main source of anger.
I think Avengers is something that was part of the old guard that they had to release it. Yes. Am I agreeing?
Well, they had to release it, but they don't have to continue to support it. They just need to take it out back in the shed, shoot it in the head, and be done with it.
The problem was that the developers were forced into making it a game as a service. That was Square Enix.
I get it, but I think they're trying to just finish the promise they made instead of just saying that promise we made. F you and that promise that we're going to continue to support this game. I think basically once the Spider-Man DLC comes out, it's done. They're just like, we're not going to support this game anymore.
While making people pay more money for XP boosters because they're sabotaging their XP system to make people play the game for longer.
I totally get you, Liam. I'm totally in agreement with you. Again, I think for the majority of the rest of their projects, they've already pivoted in the right direction. They are releasing their final.
I would agree with you in terms of their Japanese brands.
Yeah, for sure, the Japanese brands. I think the American brands are still kind of trying to finish the pivot on them right now because they
haven't pivoted at all.
I think the Tomb Raider games have been great. They haven't. I don't.
They've been right. Okay, I'm just put this out there. Tomb Raider 2016 is an overrated game that a lot of people really liked, and I can understand that, go with it, and I think Rise of the Tomb Raider is a much better game, and I did enjoy it, but they hung it out to dry by making it exclusive to Xbox for a year. And then they put out Shadow of the Tomb Raider, took away the main developers, which did hurt the project, and that was the worst one out of the three. And now they don't know what the fuck to do with Tomb Raider, and they fucked it.
No, I think it was the second worst. I think in my order, the first one's the worst of them all.
Well, I would agree. Yeah, it's just most people think Shadow's the worst. I don't know what you've done.
But again, these games came out, and when I said the pivot has happened within the last 9 months.
No, way before that.
With the new projects that are coming in the way, it seems like the pivot has happened, and so right now it's going to be now up to them to fix the US ones and get them to start their pivot. I think they're kind of doing it right now with Guardians of the Galaxy. Who knows of how it will do, because the thing is, at least it's not an online supported game, You get it?
It probably was, and the only reason it isn't now is because of Avengers.
Yeah, and that's a pivot.
Yeah,
that's pivoting.
It's a pivot, but it's a pivot to save themselves the embarrassment.
But it's a pivot.
That's I'm not gonna compliment them for making an intelligent decision to not fucking hang another game out to dry.
It's still pivoting. You can say all you want. You pivot.
Like we've got EA's pivots, and those are hey, they're really trying to turn things around. This is one pivot where they're going, hey, we'd be fucking idiots to make this an online game and do the exact same thing we did the previous year. Yeah, let's not do that. I need to see a few more pivots first, Mitch.
Well, I'm seeing it on the Japanese side, which gives me faith that they will work on it on the American side. And this one pivot is at least a signal sign to say we are not going to be fuck-ups again. At least in that front.
We'll just sell them to Microsoft, and Microsoft will do better with them.
I don't know. On the Japanese side, they're just following Western trends. They're not even doing what they used to do, which is, start the trend.
I would disagree.
In fairness to you, Burko, you haven't played Final Fantasy VII Remake, which I think is a wonderful return to form.
Mm-hmm.
And I really, really do feel that 16 is going to be immensely good. And I think them, given the MMO team, essentially, who were the people who were originally in charge of Final Fantasy Tactics and Final Fantasy 12, and giving them the franchise, instead of letting Tetsuya Nomura fuck all of it up. I think it's going to pay off.
And I think when you say Burkoff setting the trend, I think they did set the trend with Final Fantasy VII Remake. If you look at specifically, and the one thing I speak of, I think in other ways they're basic. I don't like saying basic. They're doing the bare minimum to call themselves an action RPG. But I think what they did was revolutionary, which I think is setting the trend, is the way their combat system is. And the two options with the I think is probably the best modern take on trying to do a turn-based system without being a turn-based system and making it engaging for the player. I think this system is one of the best systems I've seen in quite some time in regards to action RPG. I want to see this in more games. Like I would really be excited if they put this
in. Even Tales of Arise has kind of copied it.
Yeah, and I would love to see. I would not mind at all to see this kind of system in the next Final Fantasy game, because I think it works really well. It offers an opportunity for strategic opportunities by putting everything in slow motion and going through menu bars to put a strategy to it. But then if you know what your strategy is already, you can set hotkeys and instantly start just doing this stuff without having to sit and go, right. I know what I'm going. See, this is the problem with me in turn-based systems, is I don't like the strategy of, I know what I need to do. I just have to wait for 5 fucking turns before I can be able to do that one thing that's going to finish the battle. Why not just give the opportunity to just do it now? And because it's all in real time, why not just give them the opportunity? There's a reason why the old Final Fantasy games give you 5 times the speed in a game, because they know the turn-based system is archaic and fucking boring at times.
No, that has to do with the grinding. I will say, before you grind them into bits, Virgo, I just want to say, as a lover of turn-based Final Fantasy games, because I fervently disagree with those last comments, Mitch. I fervently disagree. I love turn-based, but I find this to be a wonderful, happy medium, compared to the direction that they were going. Mm-hmm. To me, as a turn-based purist, it makes me immensely happy.
And I think Burkoff should really play Final Fantasy VII Remake so he can witness it himself. You should play the demo. Have you played the demo?
I did play the demo. I don't like what they did with it in the demo.
Give it another chance, Burko. You need to get a bit further.
When they release it on Steam and Xbox, I will take another look, and I'll wait for their 50% discount, because it's the furthest that they go on any of their games. They never Steam? Discount. No. It's not on anything right now, just PlayStation.
No, it's on PC and PlayStation.
Final Fantasy VII Remake.
Yeah.
Well, no, actually, it's only on PlayStation 4 and 5 at the minute, but it got leaked that it's coming exclusively to Epic Games Store, probably early next year. And if Burko want to wait for it to come to Steam, I'd understand that.
Yeah, well, I'm not going to play it on Epic.
Yeah, exactly. And God knows when it'll come to Xbox. I'm not sure.
Well, I mean, in all fairness, it might even come for Game Pass once it is on Xbox. So
it might do, but I don't know. There's something weird going on with that game. I feel like Sony may have
bought the full exclusive right
console exclusively. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
I wouldn't be shocked either, especially how well it sold. They're probably just like, let's lock it in, and that's why they did the DLC and then did the re-release on PlayStation 5 and then did the deal to put it on PlayStation Plus. I bet Sony was like, this is selling really hotcakes right now, and it is making us look good. You look good. Let's just give you more money and make this look good for all of us.
Then I'll have to wait until I'm a pensioner and it's actually out. and the full game is released. All the parts, and it's
But yeah,
that might take a while. Nomura may die first.
Well, we'll finish it up by talking about Ubisoft, because I think Ubisoft should be on this list. I think Square Enix should be taken off the list, and we put in Ubisoft. Yes, Ubisoft. And I know I have a friend that works for them, and then this is not a diss to them. Like, I think they do a great job. I think he does a great job of what he does. But man,
and
oh man,
is made up of thousands of employees.
They just work on a formula and just go with it. And I don't know if I can really play Ubisoft games anymore because they are the same.
So I think part of what it is burnout, though. Like, there's been 8 Far Cry games in the last 10 years?
Yeah, something like that.
Something like that.
Yeah.
And I bring up Far Cry just because that's the most recent one that came out. And the formula hasn't really changed over those 8 games. It just they found something that works, and they just release that every couple of years or whatever. I don't know that it's necessarily what they're doing is wrong or bad. I think people are just tired of it because it's the same stuff over and over again.
Well,
I mention the controversy from last year where they where they basically turned a blind eye to toxicity within their company, even to the point where they seem to have not even dealt with all of the people they know to be toxic within their company. I'd say that's a problem, but I also think in terms of their management, there's like this thing going on where they're like, we want to make games that are like toast, nobody's offended by them, nobody's it's like making something so in the middle of everything that nobody's offended and nobody gets frustrated by it. It's just a basic game that doesn't do anything new, doesn't even try to, it wouldn't be a problem if they weren't working on games with such high, like Assassin's Creed, high science fiction, or Far Cry, which is like really serious drama, and they could do so much more of these settings, like freaking like a country in the middle of a communist takeover, and like a fundamentalist Christian cult essentially, in the last game. And what they choose to do with that is just so boring and uninteresting, and
they have no story to tell. They have nothing to tell. They
have all of these wonderful franchises that they could do.
I mean,
I was trying to find this quote to explain Far Cry 6, and I can't find it. But basically, it was in a sense, it said, and it was a reviewer person. It's like, this is not my review, but I couldn't play it anymore.
It's the Vice Games review, which is, I wholeheartedly agree, and I retweeted it, and I think.
Is that you that retweeted? Okay.
I think what he had to say.
I'll find it
in the review in the non-review, was accurate. Like, yeah, it's people are just fed up doing the same damn thing over and over again. But I mean, what I will say though is, I think that Ubisoft's not the worst, and they're certainly shouldn't be on this list just because they are trying some different things, like with Riders Republic and.
Riders Republic is steep all over again.
Oh, it's different though.
What makes it different? It's a new skin.
It's not just a new skin.
I must admit, I was much more excited for it until I actually played it and thought it felt very basic and uninteresting.
Oh, as waypoints. Here it is. Sorry, just get to
I kind of wish they'd focused on one sport instead of a billion, because then maybe the base gameplay would be great.
That exactly. Here's the quote. This isn't a review of Far Cry 6 because honestly, I can't play this shit anymore. I just can't do it. That's the quote.
Yeah.
It gets a bit tired after you've taken over the 60th base, in much the same way that you took over the first one. You know,
but it's not only that. It's just like the Assassin's Creed base took over you did in the game that came out 6 months ago. Like it's just it's like these games are no longer original in so many ways. Like what you do in these games are so basic in regards. Oh my gosh, I hate using the word basic, but here it is basic because it copies it. It literally is a copy paste job of going, get this base, and then you go to their next game and it goes, get this base, and it's like, what is original about this, guys?
We've talked about the Ubification of games and like
I love that word.
The lists where it's basically just
it's homework
checklist.
It's homework.
It's a giant checklist of shit that you can do, and yeah, I mean, I don't know. They could probably benefit from scaling back some of these games and just telling a story, and not have you crawl over the map for icons.
Yeah, I'm not sure
what they did. What they did with Assassin's Creed, I think, worked. Where they did scale it back a little bit, but they still had a lot of this shit that you could uncover in terms of the icons on the map.
I must say,
Go ahead.
Sorry. I was just saying, I must say I'm less frustrated by Assassin's Creed. It's just I don't have time to play a game of that length. You know, I used to like Assassin's Creed when it was a shorter experience, and I'm sorry, but you got far more out of those games playing it for 25 hours than you did out of this freaking ridiculously long experience where you're playing it for over 100 hours. You know, there's no respect for people's time anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I love Black Flag and Origins. They're probably my two favorite out of the series, but I can't finish Origins. I've already put 50 or 60 hours into it. I'm halfway through the fucking game. Like, no, I'm done. Like, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think right now I think Ubisoft needs a hard reset for some stuff, and just a really, really, really hard reset. Like almost to the point where I think some of these franchises should go away and not come back for a while, and literally just say, we need to make a new property to give this a fresh coat of paint. Because right now, like you guys have said, it's so weird to think of a publisher, and I get it for some aspects, but I don't get it for some. And maybe this is their mentality, is they're hoping that you don't play all these different franchises that they have, because they're hoping with the 120 hours you're playing on one franchise, by the time the next game in the series comes out, you just only buy that one. That you're not buying Assassin's Creed, but then when Far Cry 6 comes out, you're going to go buy Far Cry 6, and then you realize that they're very similar in regards to basic gameplay, basic ubification of all their things, of how they do things. Like, literally their menus are exactly the same, and that is so... Like, if you gave me a menu and you showed me the menu, I could say this is a Ubisoft game. That's how bad that has gotten. But anyway, to my point, I'm trying to say is that, you know, I think they maybe, which is shocking to think if this is what their mentality is, that you don't play all their different types of properties because they're hoping maybe you don't.
They probably. I mean, I guess I'd be a good example. The two franchises that I would probably spend the most time with, or have spent the most time with, is in recent memory is Assassin's Creed and Ghost Recon. Those are the two games that I've played, and I've ignored everything else that they've done, other than Trials, which I freaking love. Love Trials.
I mean, just to your point, Matt, they just announced a new Ghost Recon game, which is a Battle Royale. And that just made me want to kill myself.
I was gonna say, did you just see my soul leave my body when you said Battle Royale?
I was like,
they already had Hyperscape.
Yeah, I was gonna say, didn't they just make Hyperscape?
Was horrible. Yeah,
it was okay. To be honest, Hyperscape is actually not that bad. Like people,
no, it's fucking horrible. I jumped into that game. I didn't know what the hell was going on. People were flying around. You're a ghost for part of it. Like after you die, and then.
It's for revival. Like, that's nice. Like,
bad.
My problem with those games is it doesn't take an idiot to fucking look at it before they announce it and go, this isn't going to be successful. You've wasted your time with this. Like,
you could have given me the marketing pitch.
They're putting out this Tom Clancy's Ex Deviants, you know, this new Ghost Recon game, And it's like, dudes, why are you making all of this filler shit? It's not going to be successful. It'll probably be around for a year before you shut down the servers. It's just
I mean,
a waste of money.
I liked Wildlands because that brought some of what I used to enjoy with Rainbow Six back in terms of trying to coordinate and calculate how you're going to take bases down and stuff. A little bit more than like a Far Cry, right? Where you just mark the enemies and go in guns blazing.
At least it felt like some kind of evolution, even though it ended up just being more of your typical Ubisoft go to a tower and you know go to a camp, you know.
Yeah, I just
not much else.
I think this is the most frustrating for them. So I really just need to see, like, at least one like diamond in the rough for me right now is Extraction. I think they're being a little more creative with that. It does look interesting where like you can lose a player and then you have to go retrieve them. Like, that's fascinating because it puts risk, and that's something that you don't. Now, like, let's see how it works and how it all goes in the end, but I think also it helps Rainbow Six kind of come back to its roots of being more of a strategic, you know.
I mean, I love Siege as well. I think Siege is great.
Yeah, so like that's one thing that they do have going for them, but I really do. Yeah, I don't know what I need from Ubisoft anymore because I don't even know if they're listening. It's like it's yelling in the window expecting someone to be there, but no one's there, and you're like, hello.
We know one person, and they'll probably be like, yeah, we agree with you.
And I
also they should do Watch Dogs Legion again, not fuck it up this time.
But I do hear the complaints from people from. Someone in that studio that goes, Ubisoft gets too much crap. And like in the example they gave was like, oh my god, if they saw Ubisoft reusing assets for like the asset they're using for the God of War game where Kratos goes into the boat, and they're like, oh my god, they're reusing that asset, and then in my brain I'm like, you'd think that Kratos would go in the boat the same way he went in the first time, because nothing's changed in his life to be able to change of how I get into a boat. Like, okay, but
stuff, it does not bother me at all.
But it's like he picked the most minute thing in the world of being like, well, your stigma is you do everything the same, which you do.
Yeah. Well, the irony of that is that they do make brand new assets for all of their camps and everything
to do the same thing.
It's not the animation, it's the fact that you're just doing the same thing with a different coat of paint.
And like, people would not have that stigma if you didn't do it. Like, it's like the stigma's there for a reason. Like, if someone says, oh my god, it's not like this came out of left field. It's like, yes, that's what bugs me sometimes about some things, is some people are just like why do people have that stigma about us? It's like, well, look at what you do. And if you have a pattern and people see the pattern, they're going to create a stigma about how you do things. And right now, there's a stigma on how you do things.
You know, that has been annoying me lately, that the way people have been conflating like Ubisoft games with other games, you know, like with God of War's asset being in the second game. I remember somebody going how like every PlayStation game is like Uncharted, because they put that Uncharted with zombies, which was The Last of Us. Uncharted with zombies again, which is Days Gone. And then Uncharted with robot dinosaurs, Horizon. And it's just like, come on, I can't even distinguish the first Last of Us from the second one, because they have you doing completely different things.
And they actually have a story to tell.
Yeah.
They have a vision.
You play something in the last like third of that game and you're just like, what the fuck am I playing right now? You know,
I think that and maybe this is the whole point for Ubisoft, and their mentality is immersion. There's other ways to be immersed than just going to a camp and keep taking a waypoint.
Something as well.
Yeah, go ahead.
Something. I'm sorry, but you know, I didn't mention this, but the writing in Ubisoft games is sterile and boring and unremarkable. And to be honest, when I'm playing a Ubisoft game, it doesn't make me feel very involved in the game because it's just crap.
It's filler.
I'm sorry, it is. I don't know about Assassin's Creed. I haven't played the new Assassin's Creed.
I haven't played the new one.
If I was to guess, I would say that they probably have better writing. But it's just so.
But that's not by a lot. Let's be honest, not by a lot.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like if I was to get involved in a game, you know, the golden standard is Red Dead Redemption 2. The writing in there for the world, because I'm immersed in the characters and they're not just stereotypes on wheels, you know.
Yeah.
All right. Any final thoughts, gentlemen?
No.
Anyone we missed that you want to give a hot take really quick to, that you don't want to give an explanation because you don't want to explain yourself, like Square Enix, but you're willing to throw it out there before we end it all.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I'm excited to see what Gearbox does without Magic Mike at the helm.
Okay. Liam,
I've got one as well. Tencent.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, just gonna say it. Don't partner up with a company that is beholden to the Chinese government, because you take that money, and the Chinese government changes the laws and changes the way it operates tomorrow, and suddenly you can't make the games you want to make anymore. I'm gonna just use a slight example. It's the Don't Nod have heavy funding by Tencent. Everybody at Tencent are card-carrying members of the Chinese Communist government. And Don't Nod's whole fan base is based on games that are in respect and support of gay people and trans people and just anybody under the LGBT bracket.
Basically anybody the Chinese government hates.
Yeah, I don't enjoy those games all the time, but I appreciate the people that have those games and the audiences that they have, and it's nice that those people can have that. And I would hate to see a company have to completely change the way it is to cater itself to a fucking backwards government.
Well, I think for the people that work there would probably leave before they would be forced to do such a thing, and they would probably make a statement to say this is why we had to leave.
Exactly. But it would be sad.
And here's my hot take. Bando Namco. They got such great properties. And they...
Bandai Namco, you mean?
Yeah, Bandai Namco, sorry. Bandai Namco. They got such great properties. I just wish they better utilized them. That's all. Like, they got hot stuff. And on that note, gentlemen...
I can agree with that.
We're out. Or the music's playing. The music must be playing. It's nodding its head.
That's fair enough.
Yeah, I should